Good afternoon. Today is the City Charter Commission. Today is June 26th. It's 5:30 p.m. I will call the meeting to order. We have minutes from June 5th. I'm assuming that everybody's had a chance to take a look at those. Do we have a motion to approve those?
Just one minor correction.
Yeah.
50 years from now, when somebody's looking at the minutes, I want to be at the meeting. We just have to change Christensen to Christian.
Okay, noting
Sorry.
that change. Okay, any other changes? I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Or did you make that, did you make motion to approve?
Motion
With
to
that-
approve also.
With that
the
change.
minor change.
Okay, and a second.
Seconded.
A motion and a second. Any other changes? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. At our last meeting, we had some information, or one of the things that somebody had submitted was some discussion about the ranked choice voting. And a lot of us didn't know a whole lot about it, so we kind of we tabled it to this meeting to give ourselves some time to do our own due diligence and look into this, as well as to have staff give us some more information. So we have a couple links that we may go to tonight, but I know that our city attorney has some information that he would like to give us as well. So I'm going to turn this over to Roger at this point.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, knowing that this was coming up, I wasn't sure who would be presenting information, but, you know, as I think we all know, voting in New Ulm is something that the mechanics of it are dealt with through the county, the Auditor Treasurer's Office, as far as the machines, the equipment, all those sorts of things. So I talked with Jean about the ranked choice voting. And Nicole, I think, had contacted her earlier, and so she did some checking. She's got a contact with the city of Minneapolis that does it. And she also made some other inquiries. Obviously, for something like this, I think she's got some real concerns about putting it into place. For one thing, she said that where it's being done on the actual physical ballot, there has to be an explanation about the process, at least that's the way she's understanding this, as far as what it means, how your votes will be counted, things like that. And she said, well, for the upcoming election, there is just physically no room on the ballot to do that. So it's not like even if we have recommendations, if all of this is actually going to come into play, and New Ulm decided to do ranked choice voting on municipal elections, we wouldn't be doing it for the 2018 election. She also said that because of the way that the system works, and the fact that I think there are only 3 other cities in Minnesota who are doing it, she had no idea what it would cost to put it into place. And I'm assuming she would expect the city to be paying that cost. It's being done solely for our benefit. So she just thought, you know, considering the fairly limited application it's going to have to any particular elections, and the fact that we wouldn't be able to do it for 2018, if the next general election is going to be 2 years down the road, this might be something that we absolutely want to, you know, consider and make some recommendations on. But as far as actually changing our charter to provide for it, I don't know if the urgency is there right now. Another thing, and this nothing to do with that conversation, but there was an editorial in the Minneapolis Tribune over the weekend. I don't know if any of you saw that, but it just commented on the whole concept, and I think it was generally very positive in favor of it. You know, the idea being to try and eliminate situations in which you have a person elected to an office by plurality, 30%, 35%, simply because there are so many other candidates. Typically, that's only going to come up in elections where you've got an independent running or people from different, you know, other than the Democratic, Republican parties. It's better to have more of a consensus supporting the person. That's a real reason to do it. But to get there, that's the state's decision. They're going to have to move to implement it on the statewide elections or other significant elections that are going on for major offices. And it looked like there was a lot of inertia to not be doing that at the Capitol. unless they have, different attitudes or different people, they didn't really see that going anywhere. So I'm not sure, how much the commission wants to devote to this issue for the set of recommendations that we're going to be putting together for the council, with the understanding that there probably are a lot of details to be worked out. And, no cities our size are doing it. So, Gene, of course, had no numbers as far as what are they going to have to do to their voting equipment to make this work, and how much is that going to cost, and who's going to pay for that. And I think those are things for the council to be considering, if you'd want to know the answers to some of those. At least get some parameters before the decision could be made. So I think it might, it's your call, but there are reasons to maybe at least table this for the time being. Again, this commission is a permanent commission. And at some point, if it's necessary to resume your activities for that reason or any others, we can always do so. But I just don't know that this is the time to be moving forward with it, so.
Okay.
And Nicole, I don't know if you got anything else that you think?
No,
we should
that
know?
about covers it, I think. From what I got the same out
Okay.
of discussion with her this morning, though.
Okay.
Commission members, other input from you folks?
Well, I thought it looked like a really good idea. I mean, it gives voters more power, really.
Yep.
But, yeah, having to implement it, I would guess, is computer programs and different voting machines and
Yeah.
a lot of expense, so
Yeah.
it probably is going to end up following whatever the state does. And I would assume the top two parties really don't want much to do with it. So, yeah, probably not going to happen.
And the little bit that I learned on this topic was, in that second bullet that we have, the frequently asked questions, is you do eliminate primaries, so there is some cost savings for this process. And primaries can cost quite a bit of money if you have multiple people running in multiple races. I mean, this time around, I think we just have the one primary in the sheriff's race, and you potentially cities could save some money. The other thing was about equipment, and what it said in there was the next couple of years, and again, I don't know the date of that article, said that cities and counties would need to be purchasing new voting equipment anyway due to new voting rules and laws. So I don't know what that cost is.
But the cost saving, this wouldn't have anything to do with the county elections.
No, true.
So it would only be if you had,
Right.
3 or more
Municipal
candidates
primaries.
running for municipal office that you'd have to deal with it.
I would say good ideas need to start somewhere, and sometimes the somewhere is at the local level. I completely agree with what you're saying, though, Roger. This is a big project. This isn't something that I would expect, and I don't know who suggested it for our agenda. I wasn't the person that put it on our list of things to consider. So whoever that is, if they're, will speak in favor. But I see it as something that we need to probably spend some significant time studying, getting some public input. Some of the information I read said it really is only good for people if people understand it and want to do it. So I think it would be a long-term project that would involve maybe a small committee, and whether it's the charter commission that does it, or whether it might be something that we could, as part of this working period, say it's something that we recommend at least being looked at more closely to determine if all the things that, have been raised as potential barriers are the kinds of things that DUALM doesn't want to pursue. But it's an exciting opportunity for us to maybe get ourselves out in front instead of, be the first
I agree.
small city that's doing something that no one else is.
Yep.
So I support the idea that we would think of some way to maybe move it forward, but I agree that we're not ready to discuss and decide on anything here where we're at. I think maybe we finish the work we're doing to make the corrections that have been brought up, and then maybe think about whether in the future we want to establish something in the near future to study the process.
Question I would have, is this something that we have a very active league that I know you're part of, Linda, and I don't know if Commissioner Kimmel's involved. Is this something that we could ask the council to ask the league to investigate and spend some time on?
You could. The League of Women Voters in Minnesota has already issued a position in support of the position. And so normally, the work that the league does is in addressing issues in the community is an effort to try and present both sides of an issue. So just so you know, the league is already going to come at it, probably. I mean, I can't speak for the whole organization, but normally, my understanding is that that's already in support. So we can share information from the past. That a study was done by the state league in 2004 following the presidential election concerns from President Bush and Al Gore. And so there was a long study after that and looked at a lot of different voting systems, including this and several others. And so there's some data that's already out there from that. But certainly, I would expect the New Ulm League of Women Voters would be interested in participating if the City of New Ulm Charter or City Council wanted to do something with this.
And again, at this point, with the status of the law, if we implement it, it only is going to affect municipal elections. So it's only even going to apply in cases where we have more than 2 people who have filed either for a council position or for the mayor.
Is there potential that this is way back here, if we said this is something we wanted to pursue, is this something that we have to do, or is it an option to do? And leave it up to the council to decide?
It's a very unusual situation, Brian, in that there is no law in Minnesota that authorizes it or that disallows it, except to the extent that they're saying that if you are a charter, home rule charter city, you can implement it.
Well, I understand
So
that. What I'm saying is, can you have an A and a B, and B being the ranked choice? And you have that in your charter, that the city could use ranked choice process. But the city council may not choose to do that for 20 years, but it's in your charter.
So the charter would read that it's allowed, but
Yeah.
leave it to the council to implement.
We would have to have some part of that. I understand what you're saying, we could at least get it on the books, but we would have to have something indicating how that's going to be decided and when and implemented. I mean, for one election, you're gonna have it, and then the next election, you're not. I mean, and that might be the way that you think it should be done. It didn't work, or, whatever. But I think, and then we'd also have to, work with the county as far as they gotta know, are we doing ranked choice voting or not?
Right, I guess I'm just saying, if in our charter it says ranked choice voting is an option, okay? The council decides whether or not they want to implement it or not. 5 years down the road, we sit there and say, well, we've worked all the bugs out of the ballot, we've worked all the bugs out of who pays for it, we worked all the bugs out of it, that you sit back and say, okay, in year 6, we're gonna try this. We're gonna deviate. And maybe we'll do it for 2 years, and if it's a complete failure, we're going back to the old system. I guess what I'm saying is this A or a B, or is it A and take A out and put B in? If you follow my drift.
I definitely do.
I mean, you can paint your house red or blue,
Right.
But there's no red paint.
Right.
And so at some time in the future, when you finally get a store that has red paint, maybe that year you decide you paint your house red. I'm just saying option.
And I've got some concerns about that. I'm trying to think of an analogy. It's kind of like saying, well, New Ulm is going to have a city manager, or it's not. And maybe we're going to have a strong mayoral type of government. It's like, what do you have? I mean, you're going to do it one
Yeah.
way or another. I think I can see reasons to just say, that's the way we vote on the elections we can, or we aren't.
Well, and Jean said too, if you were gonna do it, you had to have all the rules laid out in the charter for it,
Right.
the way you wanna handle it.
Right.
So, if you did the A or B choice, you still have to have all those rules laid out, and you go to all that work if you're never gonna do B.
Like, just do it one way. Pick the way you want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see reasons.
And
to-
there's enough barriers here that we don't have the known what the cost is and how you can implement it, so.
And wouldn't you expect that the League of Cities is going to come out with a lot more guidance too in the next couple of years based on experience that would help us?
I would hope so, but I think Linda's right in that, you've got the big cities who are doing it, and there have yet to be any medium size that are even, unless
wonder
it's
what
somewhere
it is.
out there in the works that I don't know about. And I think until that happens, they're so different than we are that it's, I don't know if the league is, because it seems like Minneapolis and St. Paul are off doing their own thing, and then there's everybody else in the League of Cities who are kind of doing things their way. So I'm not sure if we're going to get that much, back from the league. So-
Somebody from this Fair Vote Minnesota organization contacted me based on the reporting from the last meeting, and I haven't spoken to that person yet. I reached out to Sue Kimmel, and if anybody else would be interested in maybe talking to the person, and maybe there's answers to some of these questions, at least to get us further down the path of, is this worth pursuing?
Okay.
Is anybody interested in participating in a meeting? She said she'd come to New Ulm if we wanted.
I think I'd like to see where the consensus is from this commission. So those that haven't spoke up yet, if you want to say yay or nay, or where you're at. Dave?
A lot more information before I even comment on it.
Yeah. That's okay.
I mean,
Okay.
I would say the same. It sounds to me like what Brian described is already possible. Seeing that we have a charter, right? It's an option for us to do. We're just not putting it in there if we don't take action now.
What group could this question be given to so that it doesn't just die? One of the commissions or somebody that could keep it on, keep
Well,
that.
couldn't we just create an ad hoc committee of the members of this group? Or, it could be.
Yeah, you could.
Of this committee, or would the council create a committee?
Well, maybe we could ask a council member to be a member of the group, I suppose, yeah.
I think it falls within the purview of this group.
Yeah, I think this group could certainly set up committees to, to study any particular issue in more detail if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think the idea is that this group, you can fall off this group or not, not attend anymore, and we'll fill that seat. But this group, I sense, what we're hoping to keep going is that this is an annual convening of this group. So it's not like the last time where the group met and then it disbanded for how many years, The idea is that this particular charter commission would meet like we're required to every year, and keep going. So this could just be one of those agenda items that says, any more information we received on this type of voting process, and talk about it a year from now. And then if nothing's changed, you put it on the agenda for the following year and keep going.
And I know Commissioner Kimmel's not here. She did email me that she was going to be gone or on vacation. She strongly does support this and does not want to see this issue die. That's just, she wanted to make sure I passed that on tonight, so. Anything else on your end? Rick?
So it just makes sense that we wait until we're ready to go ahead with it before we put it in the charter.
Yes, sir.
Dennis Bourne, 711 South Front Street in New Ulm. I don't know if you're going to have another meeting on this or not, so I thought I'd put my 2 cents in. We're talking about a really basic issue, and that of voting and making sure everybody has a fair chance at getting their voice heard. And I think that what you're talking about here is the rating is making it far more complicated for the individual voter. And you look at the sheriff's race we've got right now, where we have, 4 candidates? And if you're talking about a majority, you're talking about anything other than a tie vote, unless you state a 40% majority or whatever. So if we had in the sheriff's race 2 people that tied, and then you applied the ratings, you could get the 3rd person in there,
No,
which would not be right.
no, that's not how it works.
You can.
Okay, and that's a good point that you're questioning me, because I don't understand it, and there aren't going to be very many voters that understand it either.
Sure.
One voice, one vote is simple, and we want everybody to have the feeling that they had a say. and if you got the two top ones tying, and then the third one comes in,
No,
there's gonna be a lot of backlash.
No, that's not at all how it works. If you don't have someone who has at least 50% or more of the vote, you drop off the one who got the least votes. Okay, and then you look at who would have the most votes, and you keep that process going until somebody has got a majority of the votes.
But I think I get Dennis's
This
point, is there's
says-
an education piece to this
Oh,
for
sure,
the entire
absolutely.
general
This-
public,
Yeah.
and you can't do that overnight.
Nobody's going to understand it unless they have studied all the four candidates and studied the system, and you're gonna have a lot of dissatisfaction, and I don't think it's going to be fair as to who most of the people want. You have one vote for one person, that's the way it's always been. What you're saying now is you got one vote for one person, and a second vote for somebody else, and a second vote for somebody else. And it just isn't the way our country has ever been set up. I know there are, 24 cities or states that have this, but I'm not sure it's gonna work out for them. And why do we need it? We've had a system that has worked for lots and lots of years.
Well, you might have some people who disagree with that.
Well, and it can be finagled with, and when you've got something more complicated, there are other people gonna come up with different ideas
Right.
of how to affect things. If a person votes for one candidate and does not put a rating on it, because they don't know that much about the others, or they don't want any of the others, how is the weight of that person's vote going to be compared with people who vote and give a second rating and a third rating and a fourth rating? Is his vote weight only, in the case of 4, only 25% value? I mean, there are things that you gotta really dig into. And is it worth it when we've got a system that works? And no system's gonna work perfect. We still have the best system there is.
Well, Dennis, I
I
understand
think you shouldn't
your
waste
point,
the
and
time on
there's
it.
advantages and disadvantages, but do you think it's better to have a system where you could have somebody elected who only got 30% of the vote?
It's happened.
I know, but do you
Yeah.
think that's a good idea?
You take the,
I mean, 70% of the voters didn't want this person?
you take the first Bush and Clinton and Ross Perot. And I think Ross Perot caused the person who didn't get the most votes to lose the election. And in a waiting situation, who knows how that would have turned out? But I don't think you can get it better by making it more complicated.
I appreciate you coming, Dennis. We're going to try and keep to a timeline. Thank you. So I kind of hear tonight is that we all want a little bit more information. We're not ready to put it in the garbage can.
Yeah,
We
and
might be at that point, but at this point, we want more information. So I'm hearing a subcommittee maybe to take a look at this a little bit more. So who would like to be on that subcommittee? I know Sue more than likely will. I'm assuming since she has a lot of interest, she's willing to serve on that. We get a couple other people to take a look at this, a little bit more in depth, meet with that reporter, maybe.
Not a reporter, a member of the Fair Vote Minnesota, yeah.
Okay. So that's a yes, Linda, you agreed? Thank you. Maybe one more?
Yeah, the two people on the committee so far support the idea, so if you want to,
If somebody
you
was
know,
a little bit
have
more.
a
I'm on-
balanced committee, we should.
I'm on the fence, so I would certainly sit on that committee. So why don't us three sit on it, again, with our ex officio folks, take a look at what, and bring some information back at some point. What are we looking at for a timeline on there? What are people expecting?
Well, since it can't be,
Can't be done anytime soon.
there's nothing that's gonna affect the upcoming election,
No.
you know.
Sometime in the
I
next
don't
6
think-
months timeline type of thing?
I mean,
Bring back when we got info?
Can we get started, set our own timeline, and then once we kind of dig into it, then that might, we
Once we
determine
get
that
info,
timeline, but.
When do we do that? Once we figure we got enough info to bring back to you,
there you go.
we'll schedule a meeting. Does that sound okay? People all right with that? We probably need a motion for that. I I would entertain a motion for that.
So I'll
subcommittee.
move that a subcommittee be formed to investigate the ranked choice voting method, and that committee bring back substantial information to the larger group at whole at some point to be determined by the committee,
Great. And as, the members as mentioned, right?
as mentioned.
Oh, I don't know. I'll second that.
Okay, any other discussion on that? If not, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. All right, thank you, everybody. All right, so we're gonna move on then to, was there any other items from last meeting? I know we gave information to our city attorney to look at reviewing. My understanding is we'll be wrapping all that up at a last, one final meeting probably? Or what are you
Well,
thinking on that?
What
What's your
might
plan?
anticipate, Mr. Chairman, would be, depending upon whether we can get through the rest of these tonight,
We're gonna try.
okay, what I would do is then put the package together with all the changes that we've discussed, trying to incorporate what your decisions have been. We'd meet again, go through that, and if everything is in fact okay, we then would have a set of recommendations we could present to the council. If there was anything that you thought needed more work or you had more concerns about, we might have to have yet another meeting.
Okay.
But I'm hoping, again, depending upon our progress, we will at least get through all of this, and then I'll make the corrections.
All right, let's get going then. We left off at item number 18, section number 75, city manager. Questions came up as far as method of removal of the city manager, right to a hearing prior to removal, the annual, let's maybe just break it down a little bit, address maybe those two issues first.
I think when I was putting this together, these two seem to be somewhat tied together. There was a
Right.
question about whether the charter needed to have something more specific about the method for removal, and then whether or not the charter should provide for the right to have a hearing before removal.
And you're thinking it should have, so it,
No, not at all. I mean, it's, no one's asked me for my opinion, but I frankly don't know that you generally have got a situation where employees have got a right to a hearing before they're terminated. If they think that they've got a legal basis to challenge the termination, there are other forums they can take that up in.
right.
But, I mean, that kind of creates a procedure that is not necessarily anything that's available for anyone else. So,
There's just so many different instances and possibilities. It's like, wow. If the city manager's under suspension or being investigated or, yeah,
That was the only reason I put together and sent out that chapter 3 and 4.
yeah.
Under the statutory Plan B, you'll note that, that charter process or format, if the manager's been in office for 1 year or more, however, he or she may demand that the council make written charges and hold a public hearing prior to discharge. But the fact remains is the law does not require specific grounds for dismissal. You're an at-will employee. So
Right.
it really is
Yeah,
like,
well,
you can ask for a hearing, and they can say, we didn't like your shirt, sayonara. Now, if you're a veteran, then there's a whole veterans support process,
Right.
that follows that. But, the method, I don't know that necessarily needs to be in the charter either. It's kind of a standard process, abided by most everybody who has a city manager. Some days you're there, and the next day you're not.
yeah, and so you're aware that the current charter says that maybe the manager may be removed in accordance with the terms of a valid employment contract, if any, which presumably might address the basis for termination, the severance, et cetera, or as an at-will employee, which is what Brian was just describing, in the absence of a valid employment contract. So you know, depending upon what the contract might say, if there isn't a contract that spells that out, yeah, just like everybody else. I mean, he's an at-will employee.
I suppose the
And-
purpose of a hearing wouldn't just be to, like, be a forum where the determination is made based on some merits, but it's an opportunity to say, hey, public, this is what your officials are, I'm not saying I support her.
Exactly, yeah,
but
yeah.
that- I mean, that would be, the purpose of the public hearing wouldn't be because that's the place where you could, a person could defend or, you know, affect the outcome, but it would be bringing the public into the process.
And there's nothing in here that says that it has to be 4 out of 5 of the city councilors either, right? It's just majority.
Yep.
That's a little nervous. Makes me a little nervous.
Tell me about it.
Well,
Or for you. Well, I mean, you know, we gotta think in the future here, you know, we're thinking 50 years ahead of us
but
down the
you know,
road.
I'll tell you, in my own personal
Yeah.
circumstance, there's only one person that's gonna decide whether I stay in my job,
Yeah, good
you
point.
know, so
Yeah.
it's, you know,
Good point, good point.
I'd love to have 3
Three
or
out of 5.
5 or something like that, but the fact is, there's only one.
Yeah.
And it's always been like that. Whoever's my direct supervisor is determines whether I keep my job,
Right.
you know, so,
And I don't think we'd ever have a situation, well, I can only speak for the current makeup of the council now, where it would be all 5 voting. It would never be 4 people voting or 3 people voting, because 2 are on vacation. We would never do that, but it doesn't say that in there.
yeah.
Well, we have that whole quorum thing going on that
Yeah.
solved that too, so
That's true.
that's a different section.
Well, I think for general purposes, though, I think City Attorney Hippert is correct. I mean, when Dick Salvati arrived here, he had a contract, you know.
Right.
When I got here, I accepted a document, you know, which would be considered a contract, and it just renews every year. It's not something that's, you know, re-signed, you know, every year. It's just, unless terminated, it continues to go on. And that spells out, you know, many of the things that would be addressed in how the transition occurs and severance and all of those things that go along with that. So we currently use a document, you know, for an employment document between the city manager and the city council.
So, thoughts on,
Well, it seems if you wanted to hire a city manager, and the city manager basically said, well, I'm willing to come, but in my employment contract, to be removed, I want a public hearing, you write it into that contract, then it's there.
then it would be there.
So it seems like that shouldn't be something that we set feet in concrete on the charter. It seems like that should be in an employment contract. If the city council wants this person, if this person says, this is the way I'm gonna be hired, that's their choice. I think you gotta try and keep this a little broad. Sometimes, I don't think you can start taking power away from a city council
Yeah.
with this. And sometimes you wanna make sure you protect the city with a bad city council or something, but I think that's very difficult and not wise.
Or a bad city manager that, you know, you gotta remember, we're thinking 20, 30, 40 years down the road, you get a bad city manager and they wanna start over, they're gonna be able to move forward and do that, so.
Right.
I'm thinking leave it, but that's my thought.
I guess in the whole scheme of it, we just chatted, tell me the benefit of this. I don't see
I
any.
don't know who put it in, but.
Yeah, I know, I mean, I don't see any. You can, like you said, fire at will. You have one gentleman, or it's in a contract. At the end of the year one contract, he's gone. I just don't see the benefit
Yeah.
of it.
Again, these are suggestions
Yep,
from
they're
people, and I just put them all in there, so
Yep.
you'll
Not
decide.
hearing any support, I'm gonna move it on to the, city manager completing the annual budget and/or a 5-year capital improvement plan. I think is that just requirements of the city manager in the,
That someone thought, or just was asking, should that be in the charter? That the city manager has to, you know, you're doing an annual
already
budget
doing
anyway,
it.
I mean,
Yeah, I
right.
don't-
Yeah.
And I think it was
Yeah.
then about a 5-year plan so that you could maybe have some more overall direction over a longer period.
Yeah, there's three documents that the city manager is associated with. The first one is a charter. The second one is the city code. And the third one is the job description. You know, and when you start getting, you know, it's like Mr. Jensen was saying, you know, you're getting down to the nitty gritty and telling them what color ink you should use on the 5-year plan. You know, I don't think you need to do that in the charter.
Right.
That can be,
Yeah.
that can be used, you can change the job description
Yep.
every week if you want to. And you can adapt. So when I look at the budget or 5-year capital plan, we're required, we've got 5-year capital plans, we've got budgets, and that really is not necessarily a charter item. It's more of a daily job description item. That's my thoughts on that one.
Okay, any more discussion on that item? Not
Because
hearing any?
if you look at the duties, they're all really broad, you know.
Right,
Advise of the financial condition, you know, it doesn't say must, you know, do an audit.
yeah,
You know, they're broad things just to give some bones to the position. Then the city code fills in more bones, and then the city council
we give you more.
in the job description fleshes it out and says, and specifically, here's what, you know, that we're interested in doing. So,
If we wanted a 5-year plan, we would ask you for that.
yeah, yeah. And anytime that we're required to have a 5-year plan, you know, like the street construction or, we already have one.
Right.
You know, we're required by law, we have one.
Okay. Next bullet item is report on major issues such as resignation, termination, suspension, department heads and supervisors. My brain right away goes back to the same thing, that's city council.
Job
issue, but,
description, yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of feel the same on that?
Yeah, one of the comments I would have on this is, that is a minefield of liability.
Yeah,
You know, now Brian has a lot of experience, but could you imagine if, well, you know, we got rid of Joe because, you know,
It would be, why did you get rid of Joe?
yeah,
And then you're on the spot.
yeah, why did you get rid of him? Well, you know, he got to climb up and down manholes and, you know, and he's got this medical issue and now that medical issue is out for the whole town, you know. You know, there are a lot of things around the HR areas that shall not be talked about in public with others, and
right,
so we need to not do that.
okay. Last bullet item is assistant city manager duties. Do we need to define them in the charter? They're defined, city manager duties are defined. We didn't have an assistant city manager. Do we need to define those? I don't know.
Job description.
Job description again, yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at it, there's very few positions that are actually defined in the charter.
Right.
And they're historically gonna be the city manager, the finance director, or the clerk treasurer for
Right.
most communities. Those are the statutory type positions when you have this form of government. They don't talk about, well, I guess they do have the assistant finance director takes over. I mean, we could have a section in there, well, I think we do, that I can appoint whomever to take over in my absence, you know, much like the finance director has for that particular section. But we don't necessarily talk about the building official. You know, we just don't get down to all of the different positions. It's these historic positions. And then the responsibility of the city manager is to create the system to fill the lower positions, you know,
Right.
based on the approval of the city council. So I don't know that it necessarily needs to be there.
Okay. I can live with that. Everybody else okay?
Yeah.
Well, we got through a whole section. Moving on to number 19, section 82, Board of Health. We already had this discussion a little bit at our last meeting. It sounds like we do need to keep Board of Health based on what we heard, and unless anybody has a major objection, we'll move on. Hearing none. Number 20, City Attorney, draft all ordinances and all resolutions. We did talk
Could I
about
be-
that as well a little bit last time, right?
Remember that. I frankly don't see the need for me to be drafting the resolutions. They're something where I know with the recent changes, we're trying to get those to the council at the meetings so you can see what you're going to be, voting on and signing. Nicole does a great job on those. If there's anything where she would have questions, she'll give me a call or send me an email and say, well, is this the way you'd suggest doing it? So I think that system is working, and I just don't see why the city attorney needs to be doing it, because frankly, she's probably got her handle more on the specific details of what staff are concerned about with the issue than I do. So, I can do it, but I just don't.
But some you draft because we ask you to draft them specific language.
Sure, and if there's an ordinance or things
Or
like
an
that, we're gonna
ordinance.
be drafting those.
Right.
But, the resolutions, there's a lot of resolutions
Lot of
that you guys
resolutions.
consider, and,
Logistically, it's in the clerk's office where the resolutions
Right.
get created.
yeah.
And like Roger said, we refer to him if we have questions or it's one that's out of the ordinary, but.
Yeah.
I think that was maybe my comment in that in section 80, the city attorney's responsibilities are to draft all ordinances.
Yep.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if you want to
Clean that up.
modify that language.
Well, see, an
to not
ordinance,
require you.
an ordinance is something that's gonna go in the city code, and I am doing that.
Okay.
The resolution, you could have a resolution that we're gonna sell the fire truck. That's something, we decided to do it by resolution, but it's not changing the code, and it's not an ordinance. So that would be the distinction.
Yeah, we do resolutions for all donations. I mean,
Right,
it's,
that kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah,
You don't
the
like
the
how it's
legal,
worded in here, Dwayne?
No, I'm fine with that. I
You're
just
okay
wanted to
then?
make sure.
the
that-
legal language for ordinances is way higher. That threshold is way higher than for a resolution. So,
Everybody's okay with that? If not, speak up. All right, so I'll move on to item number 21, the Police Department and the Police Commission. Question about mayor as commission member. So we're moving on to section 87. Roger, do we have anything on this one in specific?
Well,
We know what-
I think this is something that's, caused some discussion. Currently, with our present structure, the mayor's got, substantial amount of involvement with respect to the police department, and the city manager, says the city manager has the power to appoint the chief of police with the participation of the police commission. And the mayor is the one who appoints the commission, and I guess the question is, should the mayor be on the commission? I believe that our current mayor is on the commission.
correct.
And I don't know if you think that's appropriate to have an elected official appointing themselves to be on that kind of a commission or not. I mean, maybe you see no problem, maybe you don't think it's the way it should be done.
That's how many, 3 members?
Yes.
3 members, yeah. And, one mayor may say, that's more than I want to do, and
Yeah.
appoint 3 individuals. And the next mayor says, well, it's kind of interesting. So the current process, because it says, it doesn't say you can't do it, we fell on the side that he could appoint himself.
This whole section was discussed significantly the last time we did this, right?
Massive
What was
change.
the big change? It was,
Um,
who was previously appointing the
Because
police
the
chief?
mayor had the authority to hire and terminate at will the
police chief.
police chief and/or any officer. And there was a lot of controversy over that topic back then.
And we tried to,
Spread out the-
professionally the
Right.
whole hiring
You
and
really
firing
couldn't do that,
process.
unions and that kind of stuff. You really couldn't do that anyway.
Well, I think we kind of determined that that was kind of an outdated, I mean, back
Yeah.
at some point in
Yeah.
history, that was a rational, okay.
Yep.
Yep.
So how do people feel about the mayor being a commission member?
Is there a criteria of how to be elected or who's elected? The mayor just decides? Is that?
Mayor brings it to the council and then the council with the commission, with police commission, yeah, he still brings them to the city
Yeah.
council for approval.
Appointed by the mayor, subject to approval of the council.
Well, and then later on, there's language, and it's kind of a complicated part of our charter, but it says the commission shall confirm or deny a proposed removal by the city manager of police officers, other than the chief of police. So as I would read that, they would kind of have veto power. over an employment decision that Brian would be making. And maybe because police officers are so important, I mean, maybe you want to retain that, but I just want you to know that that's in there. So, I don't think it's ever been an issue.
No, historically, the process would be if we had an issue, and I felt there should be, a person should be terminated, then we would fire up the police commission, we would sit here and we talk about it, and then a decision would be made. And if the decision was to continue on with the termination, then the labor union would get involved, and it would be a very long, protracted discussions and go through step, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Grievances, yeah.
And through the grievance process. So it's not like it's, I make a decision and boom, it happens. It doesn't happen that way. The practical aspect of it is it takes a long time to go through the labor contract grievance process. And it also gives an opportunity, human resources and myself to sit there and explain it to a board that hasn't heard anything, the history, and you sit back and say, okay, this is what happened, do you concur? It's nice having a group of people who are not biased one way or the other. In all likelihood, they have no clue what's going on until you tell them what the situation is.
Yeah, I think when I was reading this, thinking about all of the things that are in the news these days about officers and interactions with, citizens, I just thought that, I think having some other folks be able to be involved and, GoPro cameras or the cameras they're wearing, and when does that video get released and what's on that? And I just see it as, of all the employment situations the city has, this is one that's mushroomed into something much bigger.
Right.
And I think the language we have is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I think the only reason this is on your agenda is just this question of, because it's come up, is there any reason for this commission to think that a recommendation should be made that the mayor can't appoint himself to be a member of the commission? And if you don't see any issue with that, not a problem if somebody does.
Is it the only commission the mayor can be a part of?
Yes.
Or can he be on every commission?
I think so.
I'm not, off the top of my head, I'm not aware of any he can't be on, but it's just customarily, this is the only time I think he's been appointed to it.
Right. I think it just stems from the past history language where the mayor was in charge of the police department.
Yeah.
And we, through modification of the charter, shifted it down to administratively managing the department, just like Park and Rec, just like any other department, and go through the same processes and take it out of we call it the political arena and put it into the administrative arena. And so this is the only time it's really come up where the mayor said, well, okay, now I'm not in charge of the PD. Can I be on the police commission? And the decision was like,
So
yes, you can.
The appointment was subject to the approval of the city council,
Yep.
who apparently decided,
That it was
yeah,
okay.
it's all
Yep.
right. And
Yep.
so it's not necessarily an example of a long-term issue of mayors always wanting to be on the police commission and that being a problem because of
Maybe
the
that was-
office of the mayor and
Maybe it was a compromise too, maybe,
could
a
be.
little bit, that we took quite a bit of authority away from the mayor in that role, and that gave him some authority still.
So this particular mail during this particular period of time,
Right.
which suggests to me that the charter doesn't need to be changed to correct it.
Unless we
Sort of
strongly feel
unique.
otherwise. Not hearing that from this group.
I guess I don't know anything about, I can't think of anything about the office of the mayor in general that would say that it's inappropriate for the mayor to serve as a
Right.
commissioner.
I'm not seeing it either.
It could be that the mayor is a former law enforcement officer and would be perfectly,
Yeah.
of some future mayor.
Sure.
Personally, I don't have a problem with the mayor being on the commission, but I do struggle a little bit with his or her power to also appoint the other two, obviously subject to the city council, but once it goes to the council, it seems like those people are already kind of laid out, and the council might be reluctant to say, no, we've got too much stacking of the deck going on here. So would it be appropriate to leave the mayor on that commission, but then have the council appoint the other two members?
Other than the mayor appoints pretty much all of our council memberships, so he just kind of keeps drawing, and
Commission
people will
memberships.
call in and say, I want to be a member of this, and put my name down for that one, and put, a lot of the mayor's job is getting all these council positions, or, these
Commission.
commission members filled.
And that can be challenging.
Yeah.
That's one of the toughest parts of being the mayor, is filling those roles. Because a lot of times you may not know those individuals too. So
I wouldn't wish it on the city council.
I mean, I'm not seeing any tremendous negative that you can say, oh geez,
Oh,
that happened,
terrible.
we gotta change that. I'm just not seeing that kind of a,
Ultimately, the city council has to approve the appointments,
Right.
Yep.
right?
So 5 separate individuals got to say, this group is okay to sit on this council. So there's, but if you're, and the mayor as well, the mayor
And
should
even
be.
if the mayor's not there, he's either, so under one scenario, the mayor's there because he wishes to be and is gonna recommend to the city council who the other two are. Or the mayor's not gonna be on it and he's gonna recommend who those 3 people
Or
are.
she.
Or she, yeah.
Or she.
Yeah, so
Can we live with that one?
Sure.
Okay. All right, the last one on this particular page, commission must confirm removal of the chief, also officer. Require council approval.
The question, I think, was should kind of this veto power over the decision to remove also apply to both, officers and to the chief or not? Or should you have the city council playing a role in it?
So it says that removal shall be subject to confirmation by the majority vote of the police commission, period. That line?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that line bothers me when I read it. So our city manager decides to terminate somebody based on a major incident. And like you said, the police commission could come in and vote to say, no, I don't think so. Now what do we do? We could have a mess. So I think we need to clear it up one way or the other. My recommendation is to remove that line, but.
Makes me think of parenting. Mom said yeah, but Dad, go ask your dad. That's what comes to my mind right away.
Who usually wins in that? At your house, Mike?
well, if you pay attention to the, arbitrations and things that go on, I'll just say specifically in law enforcement, many of those actions end up being the city wanted to terminate, let's say the police commission wanted to terminate, and they get to the arbitrator and they kick them back and say, no, 5 days without pay suspension, but you can't terminate. So even though you've got, there's this chain that you go up, there's always somebody,
The authority is elsewhere anyway.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
Well, I think that's absolutely one part of it. I think the reason this is in here is because of the nature of police work. And if it's solely the decision of one person, and that city manager thinks he's being investigated by Joe Cop, so let's get rid of Joe. I mean, no, you're going to have other people. This would give that second set of eyes a chance to look at it. As Brian said, in the real world, fortunately, this is not anything that comes up often, but any savvy city manager is going to meet with the commission first, because except for the chief, you're probably going to be dealing with the union. And the manager's going to want to have the support of the commission before he takes a step as drastic as a
Right.
termination. So I don't know that I see any big issues with them.
So you don't say big issues with the sentence, just leave it in, or?
Well, with the concept that they're going to continue to have a role in possibly they could override the manager's decision.
So you're saying leave it in or take it out?
Yeah, I could see leaving it in.
Really?
But, yeah. I mean, that's the reason it would be in there.
That's
It's
the reason
just-
it's in there, and you're just saying as a practical matter, the concerns that are being raised are easy enough to get around by being cooperative and working efficiently and effectively.
Right, I mean, if the mischief is that the city manager's in trouble and wants to get rid of the cop who's investigating him, I mean, that's one thing that this would control. On the other hand, if you've got a bad cop and he's got the commission behind him and the manager's hands are tied, I mean, this would be a problem for that situation. So there's no perfect system,
There is no, yeah.
you know, but
And we probably never had a situation, or we probably never will, and sometimes these situations are so hard to work through, and they probably won't come up, but, is there a out as far as kicking it to the council or anything like that?
Getting the council involved in the
Yeah, getting the council.
termination decision, or?
I don't know if we want to get involved in that, but.
Yeah, historically, if this wasn't a police function, the council wouldn't get involved in it unless it was a department head,
Yeah,
you know, and because of the uniqueness of a police department, they threw this extra little step in there.
Is there any other model in similar cities that's different in terms of the interaction between the city manager and the police commission and?
I would believe that some home, you know, rural communities would just treat the police chief as a regular department head. And then, a majority of the cities out there probably still have the mayor as in charge of the police department.
yeah. they do.
That's really standard. You go to any small city out here and the mayor's in charge.
Yeah.
You know, he gets a badge and,
Yep,
so that's one change that happened here. The mayor's not in charge. Police commission still acts as a filter, just to kind of monitor and make sure there's no, you know, strange firings going on.
if our city attorney says leave it, I can leave it, if people okay with that, moving on.
Yeah, I would recommend that.
Okay, all right, so we'll move on to item number 23, section 98, chief of the fire department, elected by the fire department. The question was approved by the city manager, subject to council approval. That's the wording that we wanted to take a look at with that one, so, Roger?
right, I think, you know, with the decision of the council to, you know, make this a full-time position, it's a sea change as far as what was probably before kind of an informal, you know, volunteer organization, where now it's become, you know, much more of a job. There's more responsibilities there. And I think one of the reasons to consider doing this is it's sort of like another department head. Yeah, it's a unique body of volunteers, but I think because it's a full-time position and with the administrative responsibilities, there are probably reasons to treat it like other departments.
So what would we do to section 98 then, just,
Well, we would probably
just as we,
delete the language about being elected. I think it probably would be worded something like the chief of police of the fire department shall be appointed by the city manager, subject to approval by the council.
okay. So we'll need that'll be a change in language. We'll need a motion to that effect.
So move.
Move it, second, anywhere?
Second?
A motion, a second. Any questions on that? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to number 99. Fire marshal appointed by, section 24. Item number 24, section number 99. Fire marshal appointed by the fire chief. And the question was to consolidate the position with the fire chief. Roger?
Right. I think, these were seen as two different positions. And again, with our having a full-time chief, it would seem to make, I know there's some difference in duties there, but it would seem to make sense to just have the chief of the fire department, the fire marshal.
Anybody see any concerns with joining those two positions? I don't see anything. Anybody else?
Paul
Oh.
might be here to ring in on that.
Glad you're here.
Commissioners, there's, although that I've taken over the inspections part of the fire marshal's position, there's still a lot of duties that the fire marshal does. And he still is a big part of cause and determination at fire scenes, and he takes care of the biggest part of fire prevention. Those things alone, are quite a bit of time. Not only that, in my absence, he would, for investigations and things like that, he would be the lead on that. So I think even though it's in the charter, I think the position itself should stay.
Okay.
I would like to see, that's the only job or position that it says the fire chief appoints and is approved by city council, when actually there's three. There's the first assistant chief, the second assistant chief, and the fire marshal on an annual
Yep,
basis.
can do that, yep.
So I think we can maybe drop the description off of that, because the city of New Ulm has adopted the state fire code, and I think a lot of that spells out in the fire code and the state statute who falls under the authority having jurisdiction. And with the city of New Ulm, when it comes to the fire code, that would be me. So, does that make sense to everybody?
Being a retired firefighter myself, knowing that the chief fire marshal, fire inspector and fire marshal are two totally different people.
Okay.
You might think they're the same, but they're not. The fire marshal is more the fire-orientated part of it, like he said, code investigation, arson investigation, prosecution, where an inspector doesn't do that. He does code enforcement.
Sure.
With a bill, I want to leave the fire marshal in, that's my vote.
I guess the question I would have is, does it need to be there at all?
Right.
You appoint the fire chief, and he shall appoint, much like the city manager, shall fill any positions, subject to the city council approval. I mean, we don't necessarily even have to have fire marshal or first chief or second chief. I mean, it's really kind of a administrative appointment of the city council.
Sure.
We don't
Yeah.
have the first assistant chief and the second one here either.
we
And
do it.
quite honestly, they're at a higher level than the fire marshal is. And so the question I would have is, have the information in there about the fire chief, and then put in there, much like the manager, shall designate the positions and/or appointments subject to the city council as deemed necessary.
I can live with that.
You all right with that?
Sure, yeah.
So we would eliminate section 99, and we would add
But then you'd still have the authority.
some of that language into 98.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So including keeping the fire marshal and his or her designees, or whatever, however you want to word that. Okay? People can live with that? We'd probably need a motion to move that forward.
So move.
Motion,
Second.
and second. Any more discussion or clarification needed on that one? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Moving on to item number, we're done picking on the fire chief yet? Let's see.
Not yet.
Oh, one more yet. Item number 25, section 100, compensation of the fire chief and the fire marshal. If consolidated, do we need to delete the reference to fire marshal? So we can probably eliminate that section then too.
Well, you just eliminate the fire marshal, wouldn't you?
Compensation may feed the fire.
I think probably the question is determined, because, I suppose you have the argument that when the city council passes its budget, it's determining salaries.
But then we do that for everybody. so why is
Right,
that?
right, but I mean, as far as actually determining that, that's department heads or the city manager that's doing that. It depends on the department. So this, says the city council would be doing that. You're gonna be doing it for the department head, for sure.
Yeah, but the city council approves the salary adjustments for everybody. You know, I don't even see a need for that
That's what I'm saying,
section to
to
be
get
in
rid of,
there.
eliminate it,
Because as a full-time employee, we're already doing the fire chief.
already doing it.
Right.
And we're not singling out the assistant, the first assistant and the second assistant, and they're getting
Or,
paid
or
too.
X department, we're not,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know that even needs to be there.
I'd entertain a motion to delete section 100.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, anybody disagree? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Number 26, section 159, city council powers over streets, add the word close. City code authority to control under section number, or item number 158. So 159, we're moving way down. Laying out and changing in the streets, all right, Roger, what do you have on, that's a short one, so. Council power over the street. Somebody didn't like the council's authority to do that?
I think it was just,
Maybe I
it
can-
was just a
Everything
listing
close.
of all the activities that could happen, and the city council can close the street.
Right?
It's not listed there.
Ah.
Where everything else is.
Right.
Like the street next to the or the courthouse, that's a closed street.
Oh, they just
It's
don't.
still open, but
Oh, so we just want to add the word,
You're
Just
just
add-
saying
add the word
section
close.
158 pretty well covers it.
yeah, yeah.
So are you saying just delete 159?
I don't know, I don't really know what purpose 159 serves either.
Right.
yeah.
158 says, "City council shall have care, supervision, and control of all highways, streets,
Yeah.
and alleys within the city limits."
Do we see any
No.
concern with deleting 159?
You know, it's just being more
Street,
definitive,
highway.
isn't it, Roger?
Yeah, I don't see a problem with it being in there, to the extent, I mean, there's, the first one you could read is saying that would be for existing streets, et cetera. 159 would extend it to creating new streets, changing the streets. I don't see any problem having it in there. The question, I think, was whether or not with either one of these, if some place we put in there the authority to close the street, because it's technically not in the charter. And if you look at control as the right to close, I guess you could read it in there, but it doesn't say that.
Can't we consolidate the two? I mean, if we're cleaning up the charter,
You
you
could.
could work your magic, Roger, I know you can.
I think you could combine those two paragraphs into
Pretty
one,
easy.
to be quite honest.
Then we're just gonna
I'd
have a
entertain
blank
a
number
motion for Roger
159
to do
there.
that.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, Roger, any major concerns? You gonna
No.
yell at us about that or
Nope,
anything? No?
nope,
And that's a motion
Okay.
for Roger to work his magic? That,
Yeah,
is that
work his
the
magic.
motion?
My wand,
All right, not hearing any, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, moving on to item number 27, section 171, presentation of claims for loss, injury, or death to the city council. Do we have a need for additional procedures?
I think I maybe raised that question in that if you read the last sentence, it says something about you shall cause the claim to be presented to the city council, a written notice stating the time, place, and circumstances thereof, and the amount of compensation or other relief demanded. But it doesn't, it just kind of ends there. It doesn't say what happens to that claim. Should the council act on it? What should happen? That's my question.
Well, I think in the real world, and this absolutely could change, but of course, in the real world, just about any claim at some point, we're going to be presenting to the league under our insurance.
Yeah.
And at that point, either their attorney or I, if it's actually going to be going into litigation, gets involved, or both of us. or a claims adjuster gets appointed. So this is just something that would require the council to be put on notice of the claim being presented. And then really depending upon the type of claim, because it, could be for a lot of different things. These are primarily directed towards someone who'd be claiming damages, which means money. They think they've got the basis for a claim where they should be getting reimbursed. So this is something that just is in there to get it in front of the council. I don't think it's a bad idea. I don't see a problem with it.
I don't know that it's ever been done.
There's that too.
The claim comes in, it goes to Nicole, she calls the insurance agent, and they send it up to the League of Minnesota Cities, and the council, well, I'll get information on it, and then I'll send a note out to the council. Such and such just filed a claim for a broken leg on German Street, fell into a pothole, blah, blah, blah,
And I think, Dwayne, I think you, reading this, you got a legitimate point, and to the extent that you get the so what question. Okay, so somebody doesn't do this. What does that mean? Arguably, we could, I suppose, take the position that somehow they don't have a claim because they didn't follow what's in our charter. We've never done that.
Yeah.
I mean, we deal with it. It just is one more thing to fight about in court if we were going to do that. So it's in there. I think it's probably not a bad idea to have it in there. But all of these claims generally get worked out through the system.
So you don't see a need to add even a sentence that says it shall be referred to the city attorney or something? Just, it means the section just leaves it dies.
Well, maybe the thing is that we just remove the word council. Shall cause to be presented to the city. And whenever somebody has an incident like that, we say, you need to file that with the clerk's office downstairs. They've got a form, they fill it out, and it processes through its normal insurance process.
Do they come mostly in person, or do people just submit bills and a letter?
They usually come in person to fill out the form.
Okay, so then they know,
Evidence or.
so then they're told what's the next step will be, I will be doing.
Yeah.
What if they do send it by letter? Do you send them a letter back saying?
Send the
Sending
form back
this-
to them and say,
Yeah,
we're-
Yeah, we need the
okay.
form filled
Submit
out.
That'd be my
Yes.
concern, is that they're getting some response from the city on what's the next step. Okay.
I just think taking the council out, that's very specific. And they don't
May not be
actually
coming to
contact the city council, they contact the city. And where do you
It probably
contact the
used to be
city?
years ago.
At the city clerk's office, and I wouldn't even put city clerk in here because,
No, I would agree with Brian. I think if we're going to do anything to change it, I think it would make sense to take out council, because if this was really followed and they presented it to the council, most of the time the council's going to say, well, let's have staff or the attorney or the insurance check it out,
yeah.
which is what we're doing anyway. The advantage of having this in there is if there would be a really, really stale claim, this gives us some clout, where someone says, 10 years ago, I got water in my basement because of this, and it's the city's fault. And it's like, well, everybody who was there is dead or gone, and we don't have any evidence, and, at some point you have to end it. So this would give us something to stand on if we keep it in the charter.
You live with that?
Yep.
Okay.
And you
So are we gonna remove the word council?
Right.
Council and city clerk, right?
No, clerk's not in there.
No, it's not in there. That was just an
Just council.
example.
Just remove council.
Okay.
So I'd entertain a motion for that.
So I'll move to remove the word council from section 171.
Okay, second?
Second.
Any other discussion on that? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next item is special assessments. Item number 28, section 179.
Yeah, what I was doing here is there's the state statute I reference that says that if less than 20% is going to be specially assessed, then there's supposed to be a bond, an election on the bond issue required, and we don't have that in this part of our charter. So it's kind of
I think we're
inconsistent.
one ahead of you that, aren't we? 28? Are you in 29 or?
I'm on 28, the special
28. Oh, I'm
assessments.
sorry, all right. Go ahead.
It sounds like Roger should work his magic.
It's
Magic
just
motion.
really a kind of a technical thing to comply with the state law.
I do have one, and Mr. Gromitz could probably answer. It came up today from the city engineer where we have, normally the street improvements are normally the same, the sanitary sewer, the whatnot, but we do have one coming down the pipe where the 20% is gonna be huge for property owners because of a supersized main that's gotta go in. Does that kind of impact this? If it would be less than that 20% cost of the project?
No, what the 20% relates to is the way you borrow the money. Okay, we can charge 100% of the assessment if you can prove there's 100% benefit. And then when we borrow money for other things, if all the assessments are 20% or greater, you can just go ahead and do it. If it's less than 20%, then you have to hold a referendum and have everybody vote on it. You've
Okay.
seen it in some communities where they'll say, we voted on the fire truck, or we voted on the renew bonding, okay? But special assessments, if you have 20% or more special assessed to the property owners, you don't need that referendum. You just can sell the bonds because of that aspect of it.
I'm gonna push our time limit here a little bit to keep us, hopefully, to wrap up tonight, so, Roger, what's your recommendation on this?
Why don't you let me put some, when I
On that.
put everything together for our next
Okay.
meeting, I'll put some language together so you can see what
So
we're talking
we'll
about.
approve that at that meeting then.
Right, and if
Okay.
you're gonna, each one of these things, when they're
Right.
changed, you'll be taking
Yes.
a look at them.
Moving on, section 20, or item 29, section 180. This, the whole reason we're here tonight was to talk about this particular item, is what got us here tonight, so, was talk about the blight ordinance, so, Roger?
Right. This is something where, and this really gets into the question of the ability of the city to take care of blight issues if the property owner does not, and get compensated from the property owner because of that owner's inaction. So in other words, it wouldn't be just using taxpayer money because you have someone who has got a blighted condition. This is what we need to have the teeth to be able to go back and enforce it against that property owner. So if we have to go out and do something major to correct some problems, this is going to allow us to bill it back to them and collect on it.
And right now, did not have the ability to do this, so,
We do on certain things.
no show.
The state spells out kind of what the city can do. It's not like everything you could think of they're going to allow. But this would expand our ability to do it. So we're just trying to give us as much clout as we can in having, number one, the ability to take care of these problems if the owner doesn't, and then get paid for it so that taxpayers don't have to eat it.
so this would be a new assessment.
This is what this is doing, is trying to make sure we've got the teeth in the charter, because for some of the ability that cities have to assess
Yes.
for these costs, it's supposed to be in the charter to be able to do that. So this would just confirm that, yes, the council's got that authority.
So then behind this, there's a city ordinance.
Right, there's an ordinance, but you've got to have the authority in your charter if you're going to be assessing.
And we don't, right?
And this is what would confirm that.
Does
And again,
the-
it makes it a little broader as far as what they can collect on.
Does the ordinance have a notification
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
process?
absolutely. Yep,
Okay.
that's all in there. Now, we would have to do that, and we do, and that's the procedure that's followed, to give the property owner an opportunity to get it corrected, and
Sure.
sometimes many opportunities.
So who determines when action is taken?
Well, normally, there's a variety of different ways it can come up. Usually it's complaints, neighbors, others, and depending upon the type of situation, many times Elwood Zabel or his office will investigate it. Sometimes the police will, depending upon what it is, make a determination if there's a problem, what needs to be done, and then that owner gets notified. They get it in writing. And they're given a reasonable opportunity to take care of it. If they don't take care of it, then depending upon how serious it is, there are situations where sometimes city crews will do it, sometimes the city might hire it out if it's something that normally our crews aren't going to be doing. In worst cases, we've gone to court to do things on it. But, all of that stuff is, somebody's got to get paid to do that work. And the owner hasn't done it, and we just want to make sure that, again, we've got the ability to go back ultimately on the property if we have to through a special assessment. So,
I'd be curious how many times that happened and somebody actually paid.
well, I think that's collected. I mean, some of these things are pretty routine with the snow shoveling or removal, lawn mowing. That's probably the most frequent stuff that we're doing, and I think those are getting paid.
Sidewalk repairs.
And sidewalk repairs, right, right. And those things are pretty routinely I think they're getting paid. They're getting assessed back.
There's a few that are assessed every year, yeah, if they don't pay them.
I would move that we add this language to the,
Got a motion, we got a second?
Second?
Motion and second, any other questions, discussions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Moving on to item number 30, section 243, advertising for bids. The question is about adding the words "or" as may be required by law. Roger, on that one, I think it's just
I
a
just
language
wanna
cleanup,
get
probably.
the section up here. Right, one of the things that the legislature, does periodically, and they just did it again this year, is to change things with the municipal contracting law or different alternatives cities have when they're making major purchases. And the charter as written, says in cases where bids are to be received for any such work, plans and specification have been adopted. The city council shall direct the city manager to advertise for sealed bids. There are many situations where we don't have to do that, where we don't want to do that. I think consistently throughout the current state law is the notion that generally cities should try and get the best deal for their money. And that's something that we adhere to. But there are particular situations where cities are sometimes given a little more leeway, depending upon the type of the contract. There are situations in which we can buy from, we've done this with, I think, our fire trucks. If we buy through a recognized organization, we can get a substantially discounted price. We don't have to put it out on bids. So I think the people with the city staff who are looking at whatever the money needs to be spent on, they're going to determine what do we have to do under state law. Are there maybe ways to do this better, cheaper, or to make sure we're going to get a better product or service? So there's a lot of different options. That's not what 243 gives us. 243 is pretty much just the standard old arrangement where whatever it is going to go out on bids. And I think we need more flexibility because that's not always the best thing for the city, to be just constantly following that. So that's why it says as provided for by law. If there are exceptions where we don't have to follow it and staff, council decides it's better to not have to go through the regular old bidding process, then we can do it.
And it'll still take council approval at the end anyway.
Well, I think depending upon the size of the project,
Except for
anything
small
major, of
projects,
course,
right.
yep,
Yep.
absolutely.
Roger, is the state statute for like advertising in a newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks, is that the state requirement, or is that our requirement?
I don't think, I think that might depend on the contract. I think that there may be some where they do require publication. And I'd have to check on that, Brian. And if that's something where it's not, I guess if we would change this, then we might be able to avoid that as well. But,
Yeah, because I'm sitting here thinking of, reading the ordinances for 2 meetings in a row, and, we always would have to read it the first time, but then the second ordinance, we would defer with the reading and move on. You know, that kind of thing where you're just adding on. You know, the state doesn't require that. That's an internal New Ulm rule. And I'm just asking the question, is putting it in a newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks, is that one of those New Ulm rules that we impose upon ourselves that really is not required? It didn't cross my mind to look that up, but.
Yeah, and I think frankly, I think it would be appropriate to delete that, and if we would have in there as required by law. There
Yeah.
would be a circumstance where we have to do it, of course, we're gonna do it. But it's ridiculous to make us publish legal notices in, the local or the official newspaper. It's not really gonna accomplish anything.
And as I remember, under statute 429, you have to advertise also in a publication of a first-class city, and there are different timeframes for advertising, so I think
Right.
eliminating some of that wording would be good.
Right.
So people okay with adding that word terminology under that
Yep.
section? I'd entertain a motion to put that in.
So move.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any other discussion on that item? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. We want to skip right to 247, which just talks about the bids as well. Just down a couple here. And we can hit the last one. Less than 4 minutes to go. We can do it, folks. Definition of lowest responsible bidder. Delete except as to time performance. We know what that one's about or pertaining to?
Okay, I'm not sure why that language is in there. This is in the second paragraph, where it's talking about considering the responsibility of bidders. And the council may consider the bidder's financial responsibility, experience, ability otherwise to perform the contract without reference to the responsibility of the sureties, that's the people insuring the bond, any bidder who has defaulted in any contract with the city except as to time of performance, otherwise refused. So in other words, there's somebody bidding on a new contract who's breached, they've broken their contract in the past. It says, yeah, you can consider it except as to time of performance. Now, if they've breached it on time of performance because they'd rather be working in Redwood Falls where they're making more money, I think you should be able to consider it. If they breached it because we had 3 tornadoes come through and they couldn't get at the job site, I would think we're gonna factor that in.
Sure.
But, I mean, there are circumstances where maybe time of performance would be a legitimate thing to consider. And Brian, I don't know, you're the guys who are working with these contractors more directly. What do you think about that? Do you see reasons why it should just be left in, or should?
I know every time this comes up, we have to kind of grapple with the definition of a responsible bidder. And I had one instance where department head said, this company's the lowest bidder, but if you Google them, they got lawsuits up the kazoo. I mean, they're getting sued at every construction site, and so I don't think they're a responsible bidder. And then, of course, we talk with, the city attorney's office and go like, being sued is not, or being in a lawsuit is not a reason to say you're not a responsible bidder. You may be on the contractor may be on the white side, on the winning side. There may be, they're doing it right and somebody else is trying to do it, make it come out wrong. So, we always grapple with that concept. I mean, but there's enough case law out there, there's enough, guidance from the city attorney to be able to sit there and say, this is not a responsible bidder, and these are things you can't throw the lowest bidder out on. So I don't know that needs to be there, because we go through this whole process whenever this question comes up anyway. And I don't know that we've ever
But
sat
if you
there.
Googled it and there was a lot of complaints that they never get the job done. They come in, they lowball the bid, they get the
Exactly.
work, and they never get anything done.
Yeah,
There are companies that do
It
that.
seems like
Yeah.
that should be a reason to not take the bid,
Yeah.
if you so choose. So that would mean that needs to come out.
That's one of the reasons why, is I thought, it's something, and this is kind of talking about previous city experience, but again, they breached a contract because they didn't get it done. I think the city and the council is going to understand if it's due to circumstances beyond their control, they're not going to hold it against them. But again, if they just sent their people to some place they'd rather have them work and left us hanging, I think we should be able to consider that.
Well, just taking Dave's earlier comment, what's the benefit to the city to provide a limitation to why we can't,
Right.
if it's not required for some, so there's no reason to have it in there.
So we
I don't
okay
think
with,
it's gonna hurt if it stays.
so I'm hearing we don't need to change it? Okay, moving
Nope.
on to the last.
We
I
would
thought we were
change.
saying that we
No.
do want to change it,
Just the
take out
opposite.
the,
Yeah, we want to, as I'm understanding,
Right.
I make the motion, we delete except as to time of performance statement.
Okay,
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on that item? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the last item of the night, number 31, section 213. So we need to go back up. Compensation of the PUC members. This item came up, was pushed to me a while back.
Are they getting paid too much, or what's the deal?
Actually, this came up at the last review of the charter, when charter, and this is a delicate issue because we really do love our commission members, and the PUC members work very hard, and I think it talks about, at that time, the PUC members get the same compensation as city council members. And people at that time said, well, wait a minute, they're not elected, they don't have subcommittee meetings, they have one meeting a month, that doesn't seem quite fair. And so it was changed that salary was set at that current salary of what the counselors made, and then there was a raise given to the counselors, but the PUC members did not get that raise. I think it's solid now, it doesn't go up anymore. And so the question has come up again is why is the PUC given a compensation and other commissions are not? Some meet longer, some have more sub-meetings, some get phone calls, and so that's what's being brought up today. And I said I would push it forward.
Well, speaking from experience, being on the PUC, I was on the PUC for 10 years, and I've never worked harder than being on the PUC. When you get the envelope, the packet in the mail, there's a lot of hours of work. And, I think if you're gonna go out and recruit people to be on it, it's a pretty responsible position. They should be compensated. Whether it's equitable to be the same as city council, I assume at some point it was just easier to do it that way, but
And now it's not. Now there's a little bit of
a
difference.
little bit of difference, but,
Yep.
I'm sure nobody goes on it for the money, but, but just referencing the meeting was the shortest part of being on the PUC, as far as work. And we had plenty of meetings along the way, different projects we had to meet with. So, I certainly think they should be compensated fairly, but how you determine the amount, I guess, is in question.
Other thoughts?
I'm a PUC commission member, and I didn't know there was compensation when I agreed to be on it. And when I asked somebody why, they said, well, because you're running a business. It's not necessarily the same kind of position as some of our other commissions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm on the PUC also and had exactly the same thing. I just sent a note to the mayor and said, here, you're looking for help, I'll be happy to serve on one of these three. And he said, how about this one? And by the way, there's some money in it too. And I was like, oh, okay. So-
Yeah, and sometimes I feel bad for something like Park and Rec. Sometimes their meetings can be 2.5, 3 hours long. I mean, they can go a long time, and they deal with a lot of money and a lot of issues as well. And
As Park and Rec Director Schmitz would say, but they're the Department of Fun.
yeah, Department of Fun. Yep. I just said I'd bring it forward, so other thoughts?
Well, bring it forward as to what?
I think some of the thought was, if you're going to compensate some, you should compensate all. Or the other thought was, why are you compensating them when you don't compensate anybody else? So maybe there should be compensation.
Oh.
Well, it also says
was
that
one or
they
the other.
receive the same annual compensation. So
Yeah,
do we
let's
need
look
to
at that
change
wording again.
Because you're saying.
Nicole,
that
you and I
they-
have talked about this before. Can we, what's your recollection on this?
This just states if the city council wouldn't fix what they get paid, then
Yeah.
that happens.
Oh, okay.
And the
Right.
council has decided what they're getting paid.
Yeah, so that's why they don't.
That doesn't
Yeah.
kick in at all.
Yeah, because they didn't get the last increase. The city council's only had one increase in my 9 years on the council. And when we amended this in 2011, the increase came after that time, and they did not get that increase.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Huge increase.
Well, and again, I'm not sure what the proposal is to change the charter on this.
Well, are the duties similar to, I mean, there's
Well, I
a
think
reason
when-
why it's different?
Well,
Maybe
when you,
I don't
well,
know.
when you, I mean, whatever you're gonna recommend, but I mean, the PUC's budget is what, twice the city's? When you look at the money going in and going out? You
Right,
look at- you look at
$42
the-
million for the PUC and 18 million,
Yeah,
roughly
this
for
is
the
not
city.
Park and Rec. I mean, this is a big,
Well, not to
big-time
diminish-
operation.
not to
No,
diminish
no,
it,
but I
but-
mean,
and
but
it's
it's a
also a
huge
different-
responsibility.
How would you define the PUC as opposed to some of the other commissions? I mean,
Well-
the city council isn't in charge of the PUC,
Right.
for example.
Correct.
It's
The
a-
PUC
it's a
does its
un-
all
It's
its
a unique,
own-
separate
It
entity.
is, it's very unique.
PUC does its own personnel committee, does its own supervising of all the employees. Park and Rec does not. You
Right.
know,
And
it's-
maybe that's not the best example, but.
Yeah, it's a business, and the PUC is in charge of running that business. All the land and everything is owned by the city, but they're responsible for day-to-day operations. And Park and Rec, doesn't have that. They're a recommendation body, just like almost every other entity that board or commission. PUC is the only one that has like total control of operation except for library. Library gets their power through the state statute. It basically says, elected people shouldn't decide what stuff is in the library.
And unlike many, many cities, I mean, we're providing gas, water, sewer, electric. Most other towns, they're getting billed to some, third party. The PUC is responsible for all of that, the long-term planning, so it's really a responsible job.
So I'm not hearing support, at least. No. All right, so that entity will die. So that wraps up our meeting today. So we do need to have a meeting, probably a short one, well, potentially short, to look at what your changes are. I have full
Well, I
faith in-
mean, true, there's only some of these that are gonna be amended.
Right.
And so I would be bringing in the new language. I would get it to everybody in advance of the meeting.
Okay.
We'd go through it, and with any luck at all, if we need to make any last-minute changes, you can instruct me to do that.
How much time do you thinking you're gonna need for that, Roger?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow would be fine. Everybody be here
No,
at 5:30?
I would ask for 3 or 4 weeks to get it
Oh,
done.
yeah,
And then depending, we're getting into
Yeah,
midsummer
why don't we
here.
just shoot for
August.
same time a month from now or something like that, and just take it off of when you're done?
Okay.
Then we
and-
get like a week and a half of notice to, as much notice as we can have.
Okay, so do you want to set the meeting then internally or as opposed to
Yeah,
tonight?
why don't you
Why don't you give
get
yourself
to
6
doing
weeks?
your stuff,
Okay,
and then when you get, kind of close, then you can alert us, and then can then schedule the meeting.
Yeah, do a doodle thing.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, that works really well.
Great. Thank you all very much. We did a lot of good work in the last couple of meetings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, if we didn't adjourn, are we adjourned?